Alright guys, as I promised in the last video, we'll get started with .NET Core, and in this video we'll just explore the CLI tools and see what's available and how you use them, things like that. So what I like to do when I'm developing .NET Core apps, I use Visual Studio Code, and so I have a particular folder open in Visual Studio Code right now, and you can see the path here. I have in Visual Studio Code, there's this terminal on the bottom, which is great, so you can code and then put in terminal commands all at the same time, which with .NET Core I find is very efficient and works great. And I'm using the bash instead of like PowerShell or whatever. If you install .NET Core, then you will have access to this .NET command. So if you type in .NET and hit enter, there you go. Let me make this a little bigger here. Let's look at the usage. So .NET, and then of course there's things you can do with the command. So you can do things like info, that will give you a whole bunch of information about .NET Core. These are all the runtimes I have installed. As you can see, I have a whole bunch, so I should probably clean up and stuff like that. You probably won't want to use that very often. So the first thing with building .NET Core apps is you want to make a project, right? So I'm in this test folder right now, and I want to make a new project. So with .NET, it's .NET new. Go figure. New project. Alright, so when you do .NET new, that's actually not the right usage, so it's going to give you the help information. So .NET new, you can do list, which lists all the different kinds of projects that you can build out, which is actually on the bottom here. You can see all these different types of projects. And other stuff. There's cool stuff like you can install templates. So I can go on make my own template for this, and then you can install that template and make like a pre-built boilerplate web app or things like that. We won't go over the rest. What we're concerned about are these, and we're not going to go over all of these. If you're an indie developer, you're probably building web apps. So first one, console app, I find is great for teaching or for just like trying stuff out, right? So let's do .NET new console, if I can type properly. And this will use the directory you're in, the name of the directory you're in, as the project name. And there's ways to override that. We won't get into it right now. So you can see that's very quick, which is one of the cool things about that .NET Core is once you get familiar with these tools, you can just start issuing commands and building stuff really fast. So now we have hello world. Of course, hello world. Let's add something there. So what if I want to run this? What do you think I need to type? .NET run. Go figure. So there you go. My console app is running. So with using Visual Studio, doing this is running your apps, I find, is really heavy. So doing it from the command line in Visual Studio Code is super fast, and like I said, super efficient. You can test stuff out really fast. You can start putting putting some code up here that you want to test out, and then just write it to the console to make sure it makes sense and stuff like that. So console application is great for just trying stuff out. Now we get into what do I recommend as a starting point for web developers. I think officially Microsoft, when you go on their site, they recommend this Razor page format. I don't, because it's not an industry standard. Razor pages is only on .NET Core. MVC is. So I would start with MVC. just like the console, let's do .NET Run. What this is actually going to do, it's going to run a web server from the console. And this is one of those huge things with .NET Core is the ASP, which is the web framework for .NET. In .NET Core, they actually built a web server that's inside the runtime. It's very similar to Node.js, where you can, have a web server running from the command line. So here gives you a nice link to go to your web app. And so it's, boilerplate web app, different pages. Okay, one thing you'll notice is there's no login or things like that. So let's clear that out. And we'll do .NET New MVC. But now, if you put this flag on, which is auth for authentication, this will scaffold all the authentication for you. It'll hook up the database for you. It's going to rig up a SQLite database for you. And I did something wrong here. What did I do wrong? So you have to tell it what kind of authentication you want. It's so flexible. There's so many different types of authentication you can do. So the one I chose is individual, which just means it's the standard username, password that gets stored in the database, and then you can log in, things like that. Now that I made this mistake, we can look at all these different kinds of things. For example, you could have Windows authentication, which I don't use, but some people might want to use that. So why don't we do .NET Run again? And now you'll see that we're able to log in. So even the views and the boilerplate are built for you, and now they're built using the authentication scheme. So I can go in here and I'm some guy 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, anyways, you log in, register, and then you'll be able to log in, and it'll just give you like a blank page when you're logged in. But all the pipelining and stuff for you, it's all there right out of the gate. So I'll just blow all that away. So that's kind of the quick and dirty of getting started with the command line. There's .NET Build, which it will build your project, but it won't run it. But those are kind of the main tools that you want to use. Okay, there's a .NET. I know there's a way to deploy them from the command line. I've never done it, so anyway, publish. There we go. So you can do .NET Publish, and let's try that right now. Yeah, so there's no solution, or there's no project there, but you can configure that. Once you're done configuring your project, just from the command line, publish it to your server. And one way some people like to do that is maybe in a more advanced scenario, because .NET Core can run on a Linux server. You can hook it up with container technology like Docker, and with Docker you can bundle it in this kind of prepackaged container, which has the operating system and the runtime stuff that you need, kind of all prepackaged, and it's all in this nice little package, and you can put that on your server. And instead of deploying your just like the binaries for your app, you're actually deploying this whole operating system that already has everything rigged up in there, and push that out. So you can do that with a database. You can have like Postgres or MySQL, which are free, and then you can hook up your .NET Core app to those databases. And for really simple projects, like I had mentioned, the .NET Core MVC. Let me go back to that. Actually, that's not going to work. We want the one with the auth. Yeah, let's do that one again. So this is using, by default, when you're in development, it's actually using SQLite. So it's a file-based database, and that's so cool because you don't have to install MySQL or whatever. Just this will work in development out of the box. And if you go to there we go. So if you go into the source code, this file is kind of how you configure your app. It's the startup file. And you can see here, this is using the database provider. So it's a entity framework core, which is an ORM. Basically, it's a way to access your data. It's a way to manage your database from code, a way to query your database from code, and it's super handy. So you don't have to go in your database and build all your tables and stuff. Everything's done from your code, and your code knows how to access the database kind of seamlessly. So if you've never used that, it's so nice to get up and running quickly. But you'll see here how this code is saying use SQLite, and you have the option to change that. So down here you can see there's a way to say if you're in development, maybe I want to do something different. If I'm in production, maybe I want to do something else. So you have the flexibility to do all those kinds of things, which is great. And that comes back to the configuration in .NET Core. It's way better than the .NET Framework, and it's all kind of built into .NET Core. With .NET Framework, there was a lot of like external stuff that you had to know. With .NET Core, it's just all inside, and that's what makes it cross-platform, is you don't have to know these Windows-specific things or have these Windows-specific things. So I think that's it for now. That's kind of the basics. Hopefully gives you a little more understanding of how you would start building apps and why it's so beneficial, because you can just push out these commands. It'll build your whole scaffold, your whole app for you. Like I said, you can get other templates online for other things. There are templates for more advanced scenarios. I won't go through them right now, but you can get templates for Angular apps or React.js, and that will basically build out like a web API project, and then build out like a React or Angular project for you next to each other. It'll come kind of rigged up already. So there's so much power that you can do. Just kind of out the door, you can start doing those kinds of things. If you need something custom, then of course you can build it. So if you like this video, like it, and if you're not subscribed and you enjoyed this, please subscribe. I hope you have a good day and have enjoyed this video. Take care.